what's your sweet spot? In what kinds of businesses do you like to invest?
So personally, I'm focused on web and software businesses. So um, companies in the ad tech space I've been looking at a lot recently, consumer internet, and then SaaS plays, web services, kind of in and around the social media world and advertising technology world. So it's kind of most of the stuff that interests me. As a fund, we're broader than that, so we invest in a wide range of IT businesses. So also including more traditional software, electronics, semiconductors, clean tech, med tech.
Wow, brilliant, fantastic, very interesting stuff. What percentage of women startups do you get pitches for, and what percentage have you funded, I guess, as a firm?
Cool. So we don't track the percentage of startups that are pitched by women, but just kind of thinking,
Yep.
it's very low. We had a pitch from a female CEO founder last week, and I don't think I've had another one this year.
Right. And this would be the case with most firms, I have heard.
Yeah, exactly. It's the way it is.
Yeah.
I mean, this better than I do by now. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, nothing new there. I just wondered if you've noticed any differences with women entrepreneurs and how they pitch and build businesses.
So I'm going to give you an answer now. I'm going to qualify first by saying, I'm wondering if I'm projecting my own stereotypes onto the world here. But
I guess we can't. None of us can help doing that, so that's really fine. You've got permission.
Yeah, sure. But it makes me wonder if what I'm saying is actually accurate. But anyway, for what it's worth, my perception is that probably better organised, more thorough, maybe less aggressive, maybe a bit less asking us to take stuff on trust. There you go. I think
so they generally like to deliver what they promise rather than puff up.
Yeah, and I think hopefully everybody likes to deliver what they promise, but I think the point I was trying to make was that maybe more presenting a more thorough case, right? So their research is more backed up.
And I have heard from both women and VCs that women entrepreneurs often feel that they have to work harder or deliver more. Again, just as that cultural sort of impetus to prove ourselves or something.
Yeah, I don't know. So, I mean, I've read some of that same stuff, and
yes,
so if it is the case that people are prejudiced against women founders, female entrepreneurs, then I guess inevitably you're going to have to work harder to overcome that.
Yes.
I'd hope that we're not here, and that the kind of hopefully the level of work required is the same. Hopefully we look to make the same sort of decisions.
Yes, and I understand that there's a lot of firms that have no conscious bias at all, but that possibly the general consensus bias in the culture prompts women to overperform possibly, and so it isn't really, the onus isn't really on the individual venture capital firms or angel investors, but more really us trying to elevate the culture generally. What do you see as the obstacles for inclusion of women entrepreneurs in achieving funding?
Hopefully it's the same as for any business. I mean, there's only a small, we invest in about kind of 0.5% to 1% of the businesses that we actually see, and and so there's a huge burden of proof for anybody, or not burden of proof.
Yep.
A job of convincing to be done.
Yes.
And and that's a big market, great product, great team, and and hopefully that's the same for everybody.
Yep.
You want to see real commitment and real passion from your founders and your CEOs, and and that needs to be the same.
Yep.
Real belief. And we probably are attracted towards entrepreneurs that are kind of aggressive about that, and maybe that's kind of a more male characteristic than a female. Maybe that makes it a little bit more difficult. Someone who presents the big plan and
Yes.
tells you can walk through walls and when you kind of question the detail, can be a little bit impatient with you sometimes. I mean, I'm painting a kind of the stereotype of the aggressive male entrepreneur here. It can be a little bit impatient with you for kind of wanting to question the detail and why don't you believe and
Yes.
those sort of characters give us kind of pause for thought as well for questioning if they're going to be too aggressive and so on. But but we also look at that and say, well, crikey, this guy really does want to take over the world.
Yes, it's more impressive.
Maybe there's a challenge there for
Yep.
women who are less kind of inclined to be that way, maybe.
Okay. And would you include the technical piece in there that obviously there's not enough women in tech, both in the US and in Europe, and many VCs say that you've got more credibility if you have a technical background. Would you say that would be more impressive to have the technical background?
Yeah, definitely.
Yep.
I mean, they're the same for men and women, but yeah.
Okay, brilliant. Often advice for sourcing venture is equated with dating and implying that there's a matching that needs to happen with entrepreneur and investor. I'm interested in this question because my background's in the online dating industry. Have you noticed a general psychological profile of venture capitalists and also of entrepreneurs in general that promotes attraction and synergy between them to develop a great startup?
So when I look around the VC community in London, I see an eclectic collection of characters, if I can put it that way.
Yes.
There's a lot of very different sorts of people here, and each of us at each of the funds is a slightly different personality.
Yes.
And it's a young industry here. It's a very small industry here,
Yes.
And I think it's probably, so the people who are leading the funds are largely entrepreneurial in their own right.
Right.
And that's where kind of some of the quirkiness comes from, I think. And there's still no established career paths here or anything like that. And so it's all kind of different. And that's a long way of saying I don't think there is kind of a general profile that I see here. When I go to the Valley, then then it is all much more. There's certainly a homogeneity to the.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. And so maybe, I mean, I did live in London for a couple of years, and maybe it's just that whole quirkiness of the London culture too. Do you think?
Maybe we're quirky Brits. I don't know. I rather get that somehow.
Well, it's also very multicultural in London, isn't it? So the quirkiness comes from international.
Yeah, that's true. And if you look at the VC community here, it's there are a lot of different nationalities. Probably more multicultural than kind of London on average, if you know what I mean.
Yes, I understand.
But I think that quirkiness comes more from the fact that we're still pioneering here. We're still building a venture capital industry, and
interesting.
And so the people leading the funds are very entrepreneurial in their own right, rather than fitting into a mold.
That's great.
Yeah,
that's really great feedback. Thank you for that. In the dance with an entrepreneur, both in the decision-making process of funding a startup and then in working with those startups, what are the necessary qualities that make a good venture capitalist? Some of the talents that VCs have mentioned to me. Would you trust your gut instincts and feelings that happen within the relationship with the entrepreneur as signs about what's happening in the business or the startup? Or would you manage by influence or persuasion? And obviously, this is when there are difficulties in the startup that this is more obvious.
So, most of the time we have minority stakes, 20-30% in these companies, and so you have to manage by influence.
Okay.
You're also working in an environment of incomplete information nearly all the time. It's that startup life in general.
Yes.
And so you have to trust your gut instincts, but you also got to try and find as many inputs into that gut feeling as you can get. So over reliance on a relationship with the founder, I think can be a mistake. You want to get wider into the company, make sure that you've got dialogue with other members of the exec team and so on.
Oh, that's great. So basically, broadening those connections actually supports you in having some sort of influence if things are difficult.
Yeah, A, having influence, and B, and
Great.
making sure you've got a proper understanding. So one of the things we do a little differently in the UK to the US is that it's common to have 2 or 3 members of the management team on the board, whereas in the States it's common really just to have the chief exec.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of one of the ways that relationships are. It's easy to broaden out the relationships if you're seeing people regularly for the entire board meeting.
That's really great info. Thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it, and I know you're really busy from all the phone calls as well.
Yeah.